Hey everyone, it's Spencer here and welcome back to the show. I'm excited for this interview today. It's Brock McGoff from themodestman.com. We dive into his story, how he built the site, why he built it, and kind of his journey along the way. But specifically, we jump into what's happened over the last year with this site. He grew the site quite a bit and then it plateaued. And about a year ago, he noticed and he wanted to grow the site. And he's been able to jump in and almost double the traffic in just the last year. And so we talk about the SEO strategies, the content strategies, and much more for how he has doubled that traffic of his site. The site's now making about $25,000 to $30,000 a month. So it's a significant site. It's a business that is doing very well. And a big piece of that is also YouTube. He has a large YouTube channel with nearly 300,000 subscribers. And so we talk about how he's grown that channel, how he does influencer marketing, and then how YouTube and the blog work together, but also how they're very different. And so if you're into content, if you're into SEO strategies and even link building, we jump into all of those details. And so it's a great story. I think you'll enjoy hearing from Brock and his strategies. And if you want to follow along with what he's doing, you can go over to themodestman.com. Or if you want to get in touch with him, he's actually started a second blog over at fulltimeblog.com. And so you can follow along in a little bit more detail with what he's doing there. So with that, here's the interview. Hey, Brock, welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast.
Thanks for having me. Longtime fan, so it's good to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for hopping on. It's funny that we connected via email, and then I started to look through our email history, and I saw that we actually had exchanged an email back in 2012, which I had totally forgotten about. You were just asking to be an affiliate for Longtail Pro, and so I just thought that was kind of cool that like 8 years ago we'd actually exchanged an email.
Yeah, I remember back when I was like first getting into all this stuff, I was on like Warrior Forum, Smart Passive Income, following you. And I had the idea, and it's so cringy now, but I had the idea to start this site. I called it Brockstar Life, which I'm embarrassed to even say that. But, and I had this idea to kind of document what I was doing, similar to Niche Pursuits. The difference was I hadn't actually really done anything yet with online marketing or media. So I was probably a little premature on being an affiliate for software products.
That's okay. I think it's interesting. I think a lot of people do kind of start that way, right? You see the Pat Flynn's of the world or whatever, and you say, wow, if I start a blog, I can do really well. And I think that's okay, right? Like you start, you try things and you learn and you adjust from there, which sounds like that's probably what happened to you. But before we talk about sort of your success story, themodestman.com is your site that we'll jump into there. But what led you to that? What were you doing either professionally or in your business prior to starting that site?
Yeah, before I started that, I guess after I graduated from college in 2007, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I got a job in marketing communications with a little startup in DC where I lived at the time. And I knew that I didn't want to do like the 9-to-5 office thing. And my dad was an entrepreneur. It was kind of in the family. He was always encouraged us to, do our own thing. But I really didn't know what to do. And I kind of stumbled on, probably like a lot of your listeners, Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Workweek. And I started, I read that book. It was like very eye-opening. And I started doing research into the world of online business and WordPress and affiliate marketing and all that stuff, which I didn't even know existed, all throughout college and everything. So that was kind of like a mind-blowing like 6 months. And I decided that was a good business model for me because it was passive, location independent, and it seems like a very like low barrier to entry. So I kind of just started researching how to build WordPress sites and how to become an Amazon affiliate and building sites, learning about SEO, and just a lot of trial and error. And that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah. So did you start a few niche sites before The Modest Man?
I started a bunch.
Yeah. Had a
Like,
trial run.
yeah, I mean, I had a bunch of them, and it got to the point. I mean, I'll say that like I'm glad for that period because I learned a lot about SEO, and this was back when I think things are a little different now. Like, I mean, you can still do link building and stuff, but back then you could try some tactic that came out, and you would know whether it was working very quickly. And I
Yep.
didn't even really know like black hat, gray hat, white hat, like the difference. I would just see something on Warrior Forum and I would try it. And
Right.
so I got to the point where I was probably making like $500 or $600 a month from a handful of sites. And then I think whatever that first major Google update, Panda or Penguin,
Panda was the first one. Penguin came shortly after. Yeah.
Panda came, and I like my revenue just dropped to like almost zero. I was like, all right, I don't want to do that sort of thing anymore, and I want to focus on content that I actually enjoy and not just like random niches that might be profitable.
Right. So yeah, again, I think it's important to kind of have these trial to learn, from trial and error. Build some sites that maybe don't work. Build some sites that do work. You taste a little bit of success. To just, I think for a lot of people, they often discover that hey, this does work. You actually can make a couple $100 or even more. People really are. At least for me, when I started, I was like, is this really even possible? Like, are people really making this much money online? And then to have a couple of sites do well just gave me the confidence like, okay, you can go all in. This stuff does work.
Totally, yeah. And I think most people like listen to a lot of your show, like a lot of your guests, like they have that similar experience where before they landed on whatever they're kind of known for today, they had this period where they were like experimenting and just kind of learning, like cutting their teeth a little bit.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, when did you start The Modest Man and why did you start it?
So I had all these sites, and I was working in corporate jobs. I'd actually tried to quit my well, I did quit my job, and I took a sabbatical, and then I tried to actually pursue music for a while because I've been a musician. I grew up playing music, and so I spent about a year like running a recording studio.
You play guitar,
Um,
piano, like what do you do?
I play piano and drums.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, you play?
I dabble at piano. My mom was faithful, put me in piano lessons as a child, so I'm not very
Nice.
good, but I can play a little bit. And I was percussion in elementary school, so there you go.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. I played percussion in the symphonic band in high school. It was great. It's a lot of fun.
That's cool.
But yeah, I mean, I thought, I was like, all right, here's something I'm passionate about. Maybe I can turn that into a business. And I would do it totally different now because I was basically running a services business, running this recording studio. Now, if I were to go into music again, I would create content and figure out a way to monetize that through licensing or something.
Right.
But I did that. I went back into the corporate world because I needed money. I went back to the software company. I was doing like quality assurance, like really, really boring stuff that I had no interest in, but it was a paycheck.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I was getting interested a little bit in dressing better because I was working in these corporate environments. I'm a smaller guy. I look really young, or I did at least, and I was not well dressed, and I feel like it was kind of holding me back. And so my these two interests, learning how to dress well and learning how to build passive income or build an audience online, sort of converged with the Modest Man, and that was in late 2012.
Okay. Yeah, very good. And to give people just a little bit of an insight, I mean, they can go to the website and figure out what it's all about. But yeah, besides just dressing well, right? In general, it targets a specific niche, doesn't it?
Yeah, what I had realized when I was searching for information about how to dress well, searching for advice on the internet, like every other millennial, when you need advice, there were a lot of good blogs, but a lot of good style blogs, but there was nothing specific for my build. I'm 5'6" in shoes,
Yeah.
and so I would buy this stuff that people recommended, these bloggers recommended, but it didn't matter how much I spent or where I shopped. It didn't look good on me because it didn't fit. And so I thought, all right, if I'm dealing with these kind of specific problems, there have to be millions of other guys dealing with the same stuff. So I kind of started Modest Man not as an expert, but more of like a curious like beginner and kind of documenting my process of learning how to dress well. And so the niche was really style for shorter men at the beginning. Now that's more of a silo on the site. So
Hmm.
there's a large body of content around that topic, but now the site is more like a general men's style blog.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And so let's fast forward. We're going to talk mostly about kind of the journey, how you've built it, but to give people sort of the success numbers, right? So you started the site. Where's it at now in terms of revenue, either, traffic, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's been a good year for the site. I kind of plateaued for a couple years there. I was focusing a lot on YouTube, but this year I was just doing the November numbers. Traffic's at about it's like mid 400,000 page views a month.
Awesome.
Revenue is just around 30,000 a month. And then, but that's from the kind of whole operation. So that includes, YouTube and some of the more like influencer marketing stuff that I'm doing. Truly passive income from the website is around 16,000.
Yeah. So let's break that down a little. So about 16,000 sort of from the website. I assume, affiliate offers. Do you do display ads at all, or is it just
Yeah, with AdThrive.
okay? So AdThrive as well, and then YouTube and influencer marketing. Why don't you explain those two revenue streams a little bit?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people who are building affiliate sites probably don't understand that there's this other component that they could add on if they wanted to,
Yeah.
and that's affiliate or that's influencer marketing. So brands now are allocating more and more budget to what they're calling influencer marketing. So whether you see what you're doing as content creation or blogging, you're going to be lumped into this influencer marketing budget. And I
Yeah.
think you can only do it if you have a bit of a personal brand. So I couldn't do it if I just had like an Amazon affiliate site. But since my site is, I'm kind of the face of it, and I have social media channels that go with it and a YouTube channel. I have a lot of opportunities, basically an endless amount of opportunities to do paid partnerships with brands.
Hmm. Is that coming mostly through YouTube, where people want to partner with you, or other places?
I'd say at the beginning it was all through the website, like that's how brands found me. Now it's probably mostly YouTube and Instagram. And I've also seen a shift over the years where brands are really looking for video and social content. I mean, you can pitch a blog post, and sometimes a brand does want a blog post,
Hmm.
but for the most part, they're looking for visual content.
Yeah. And are you going through like influencer marketplaces? There's all kinds. IZEA. Um, anyways, I'm forgetting some of the names, but there's dozens of sort of influencer marketplaces. Is that where you're getting most of the leads, or are they just finding you, reaching out?
They're pretty much all incoming. I have used those platforms, and there's many of them. They're a little bit, I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's a little bit bottom of the barrel with those platforms because they they tend to cater to, I'd say, maybe more like micro influencers who are maybe
Hmm.
just looking for free samples or like lower cost campaigns. The bigger ticket campaigns are going to come directly to you. A lot of them go through an agency or they're directly from the brand. But yeah, it's basically all incoming. And now I actually have a manager to handle all those inquiries, and
Okay.
then they take their cut. And that's been probably one of like the best decisions I've made recently because it takes so much work off of my plate, just those emails and the negotiation. And so I'm happy to kind of give up a percentage for that management.
So does that manager do outbound sort of contacting to try and get you more deals to book out, next month or whatever, or is it still just inbound?
They will do some outbound. Like I could send them a certain brand and say, I really want to work with them. Or more often, since they're a company and they have a bunch of different publishers, they'll say, okay, you might be a good fit for this campaign that we're doing over here.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't mean to jump into the influencer marketing too much, but I'm curious. Can you walk us through what like a typical campaign looks like, as far as what they expect you to do, and roughly how much they might pay, if you just give an average or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally the Wild West in terms of like budgets. There's
Yeah.
really there's no consistency across brands and campaigns, but uh, typical it'd be like a YouTube video, maybe accompanied by an Instagram post or an Instagram story. Um, the video might have a view count guarantee, so it might say this video has to hit 25,000 views in the first month. Usually, it doesn't have a guarantee. For like a non-dedicated video, which would be more of a commercial style where it's a 60-second mention at the,
Right.
at the beginning of the video. That might be anywhere from like 2 to 3,000. And then for like a fully dedicated video, that would be more in like the 4 to 6,000 range.
Okay. Yeah. Super interesting. And I think that for certain listeners, that maybe isn't an avenue that they've tried before, that it's definitely there. I was sort of, to go on a small tangent, I was sort of introduced into the influencer marketing space when I bought a blog almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I bought a sort of mom blog. It was run by a mom that had run it for 10 years. And we found that there was a lot of opportunity for influencer marketing, things that she had done in the past. So I had some recurring clients. And so I've been introduced to that world, only in the last 3 years. And so it's super interesting. It is a ton of work. It's very different from the, hey, let's write content and AdThrive pays us based on how many people viewed that content, right?
Right.
AdThrive's a lot easier.
Yeah, I think that's I think influencer marketing or sponsored content, let's say, is very lucrative. It's not passive, but it's highly leveraged in that you're getting, if you break it down to an hourly rate, it's a very high rate. I kind of use it as a supplement, like a fundraising portion of the business, but it's not what I would consider the most important work, because for me, the most important work is building up that passive revenue.
Right. So let's talk about that passive revenue a little bit. You said a little over 400,000 page views a month or visitors a month. Is most of that coming through organic traffic?
Yeah, it's pretty much all Google.
Okay. Yeah. So what is your process for creating content that ranks in Google? I want to dive into that.
So I used to, for a long time, I was basically doing all the content for a few years, outside of the occasional like guest post. Now at the beginning of this year, traffic had leveled off for a long time. I was trying to syndicate the same content on YouTube and the blog. And what I've realized, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, but to me, it seems like two different audiences, and it seems like two different types of content do well on either. Like, I've never had a viral content on the blog.
Mm-hmm.
SEO content can do well on YouTube, but it's not really what YouTube wants. YouTube wants like viral, clicky content. And so what I realized that when I was trying to syndicate YouTube content on the blog, it didn't do well, and my traffic started to level off. And so the blog was becoming a less important part of the business. And I thought, this is my like core competency. I'm pretty good at SEO. I'm going to go back and like really, really grow this website. And so at the beginning of the year, I created a new process for planning content using Ahrefs. And it's a combination of like looking at competitors, looking at what's done well, and just, you kind of have a sense of it after doing it for this long, what kind of content will do well. And I hired a few freelance writers, which took a long time to find like really good writers in my niche who really had a passion for the subject matter, who weren't just professional writers.
Right.
And then I hired an assistant, and so he kind of handles the process of using the content planner that I put together, creating content briefs for the writers, assigning the content, and then it comes back. If it's a new writer, I review it, work with them for their first few pieces. And then it goes through a formatting process that the assistant handles. I'm usually creating the media for this content, so I'll create the photographs or whatever visual content, and then it gets published. So right now we're doing 2 posts a week.
And are all the writers and assistant, they're all freelance employees?
Yep, all just freelance contractors.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, let's jump into that. Looking at competitors, keyword research a little bit. I mean, how do you know what type of keywords are going to do well? Have you sort of honed in on, you feel like, hey, I've got a 75% chance of this one doing pretty well?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's not the most competitive niche. It's not like web hosting or insurance or something. So
right.
Like with the domain authority of like in the 50s or 60s, you're going to get some traffic. If I publish a post on best boots under $200, it might not be number one for that term, but I guarantee within a month it's going to start getting some traffic. It's probably going to rank for a few hundred keywords. So I kind of look at number of keywords, number of ranking keywords as like the number one metric versus specific rankings for specific keywords. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So when you're looking at your competitors, you try to look at, okay, they're ranking for best boots under $200, but they're ranking for, 300 keywords. And that's what you want to see. You want to see a high number of unique keywords they're ranking for.
Exactly. Yeah. And I only, I create a lot of the same content as my competitors, but I only do it if I think that basically like I could do a better job,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sites out there, like big sites, GQ, Esquire, that obviously they have smart SEO people on their teams. They're going after all of these buying intent keywords, but I don't think they're doing a very good job with it because they're not actually getting any hands-on experience with these products. And I personally think there's a lot of listicles out there that are just full of affiliate links, but there's no real like editorial thought put into their content. And there's no original media. They're just using product pictures taken from the brands. So I'll kind of look at their content and say, okay, I'm going to do my spin on that. It's going to have better pictures, more thought put into it, better pics, better formatting. It's going to be longer. And usually that'll do the trick. It'll outrank them.
Mm-hmm. So, I really want to drive that point home, just the quality content, because that seems like that's a big part of what you're doing there. And so pictures, other media, length of content, trying to make it longer. Do you kind of just look at, how do you determine the length? I mean, are you using like Surfer SEO or other tools, or do you just kind of look at, hey, here's the top 3 people, they're roughly 3,000 words, so I'm going to do 3,500?
I don't even really do that. I kind of aim for, most articles are about 1,500 words, and that, I think that's just a good natural length. Like if I don't give a writer a word count, that's what they usually come back with.
Got it.
For more in-depth stuff like the business casual guide, that's like a crazy high search volume, very competitive. So that one might be 5,000 words and it has a table of contents and all this other stuff. But, for most articles, between 1,000 and 2,500 words.
Okay. So the type of content that you're doing that works really well is related to style, right? Is it a lot of product focused content or like informational content, or what's the mix there?
It was almost all informational for a long time. And then I realized it was just like really leaving a lot of money on the table because like there was no product, there were no buying guides on the site.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to put affiliate links in informational content. So I've been publishing a lot more buying guides recently.
And has that worked out pretty well for you in terms of revenue? You said around 16,000 a month, I think is what you said from the website itself. How much of that comes from AdThrive versus other affiliates?
Yeah, it's about, I would say the ads are about a third to 40%, maybe
Okay.
30 to 40%. And then the rest is affiliate. Obviously Amazon's a big part of it, but there's a lot of individual programs that contribute to that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it sounds like the buying guides are, probably helping out quite a bit. Just to bring it full circle, you said, I think it was 2 years ago that sort of your traffic plateaued a little bit, something like that. Where was it then? And obviously we know where it is now, but just kind of curious.
Yeah. I mean, it was at the beginning of this year, actually, it was about half of what it is now.
Wow.
And I got hit with some Google update last year, and I can't really remember which one it was because I've never done anything remotely sketchy with the site. I've always been too scared to do any link building or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was just one of those random kind of caught in the crossfire updates. And that was part of the reason I really got motivated to put more effort into the site and start investing in content and better writers and growing the team, because that one hurt a little bit. I was like, wow, this site shouldn't be vulnerable to Google,
Right. So what else have you done to really grow it almost double the size in 1 year? Besides, we talked about quality new content, but what else did you do to kind of grow the traffic so much?
I think updating old content has been another big part of it.
Hmm.
And I'm sure you've seen this. Like updating an old post is almost more powerful than creating a new post at this point. It's a little trickier because it's it's very hard to outsource. I haven't found a really good process for updating old content yet. If it's something I wrote 3 years ago,
Yeah.
it's almost like I have to get in there and like put some personal thought into it. Obviously, there's just logistics like updating the links and fixing broken images and stuff. But I don't know. It's been hard to outsource. But every time I do it, I see an immediate traffic increase. So that's helped.
Yeah, definitely. I'll second that. I've been updating a lot of my content on Niche Pursuits. It's been around like almost 10 years now.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of old stuff that I just had to delete. It just wasn't relevant. Personal updates and things that, nobody cares what I ate for dinner in 2011 or whatever, right?
Right.
But going back and updating content that, it was keyword focused, just needs to be updated and refreshed. It's worked really well for me over the last few months. So I'll second that opinion as well.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I think the other part is like also just not really publishing stuff like what I ate for dinner. You're like really not putting any effort or money into stuff that doesn't have organic potential, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I know you've talked about that, how you talked about that recently, how blogging has changed a little bit where you almost can't publish something that doesn't have organic potential because it just won't get any traffic.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of the shift that I talked about is everything that goes on the blog, it needs to be evergreen content that 5, 10 years from now, it can still be relevant. Google can still love it, right? Um, it's sort of sad because a lot of the times I would blog about just what was happening and personal thoughts and opinions. And I think that's why a lot of people followed me, but I need to take that over to a different channel, social media, my email list, maybe even YouTube, right? There's just a different place for that. For the blog to perform as well as possible, it needs to be that evergreen content.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the good news is like you said, I mean, Instagram, YouTube, like there are platforms to have a little more fun with and maybe use as a personal update or creative outlet. So I just don't think that's what a website is right now.
Right. I agree. Now, you said something about not building links. You've never really tried to go out and build links actively, but certainly your site has lots of links. So talk about how you go kind of beyond links and are building like real connections and other ways and other things that have led to actual links without doing the active link building.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, there were a handful of other like men's style sites, and I emailed everybody kind of in the industry and just like introduced myself. And of course, I knew about like guest posting as a link building strategy, and I feel like that term has really changed because the idea of writing for someone else's site, there's nothing wrong with that, but now as like SEO people, we think of guest posting, we basically think of getting spam emails,
Yeah.
and but back then it wasn't really like that. It was just meeting people. And I also went to conferences and I would meet these people in person just to kind of put a face to the name or try to get them on the phone. And some of actually the first two sites that let me write an article for them, Effortless Gent and Primer Magazine, the guys that run those sites, Baron and Andy, are two of my closest friends now.
Wow.
So
Awesome.
yeah, and a lot of these people in the industry are, and it's because we actually have real connections. So it's not just like an automated link building campaign. It's actually forming friendships and like making time to see these people in real life. So I think that if you choose a niche that like you're really dedicated to and you're passionate about, it does make sense to kind of put in the time and try to make some real meaningful connections and not just like do link building, quote unquote.
Right. So are you still doing that? Do you still kind of reach out to new blogs that you see or connect with other people in that way? Is that kind of an ongoing thing that you are doing?
Totally, yeah. Although now it's more like with guys like you. Like now I'm more kind of trying to meet people who I've either known about or who I discover who are more passionate about like the business side of things. Because the men's style world isn't that big, and so
Right.
I kind of know a lot of the people in there, and we all help each other out. We're all linked to each other all the time and promote each other. It's a very inclusive group. It's not a competitive group. So, but if I were starting a new site in a totally different niche, I would do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And would you still go kind of the guest posting route? Like when you reach out to people, are you trying to get like a guest post, or is it really just you're making a connection and you see where it leads?
I think that's it. I think you
Yeah.
got to play the long game, and people are much more wary than they were a few years ago. And so, sure, like even if maybe you have the motive to get a link or something like that, that'll happen. But like, give people a reason to trust you, and to want to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. I found the same thing, is that behind every website is a real human. I mean, as a person, somebody like you or I, we're just building a business and we're doing the best we can. We maybe have a lot of the same problems. And so just being able to connect with people, like I have a ton of friends that I've met at conferences, that I've connected with over social media or done a podcast interview with, that I've never gotten a link from or I've never given a link to. But I really value those relationships, either for advice, and at some point down the road, maybe there is something that's going to happen, right? But I think just over time, it kind of snowballs. You have more connections and more people you're referencing each other, and Google eventually sort of finds out about those things, I guess.
Totally, yeah, and they're getting better and better at it, and also like just give before you get, like
Yeah,
promote people before you even know them, or link to them before they link to you or whatever. Just like be generous, and it'll come back. But if your mindset is I'm building these Amazon affiliate sites to make money, and versus like I'm trying to create value in the world in some way and like make something I'm proud of, it's just two different mindsets. So I think it's more fulfilling, and you'll probably be more successful long term if you have the second mindset.
yeah, absolutely. Now let's shift a little bit to YouTube. You're crushing it, man. I took a
Nice.
look. You've got almost 300,000 subscribers, I think. So built a great channel. And so how'd you do it? I mean, what's the process of growing a YouTube channel?
Honestly, I'm still confused about YouTube. It's such a fickle platform compared to websites and organic traffic. But I think there are kind of two ways you can go with YouTube. There's basically treating it like a search engine, and in which case you can take the exact same strategy as you do with your website, or playing the YouTube algorithm game. And in that case, like it really is about the title and the thumbnail. Um, you got to have good content, obviously, to back it up, and whether that's helpful or entertaining or both. But if you don't package it nicely, you won't have success on YouTube.
So are most of your videos more these sort of viral type content, or are you doing a little bit of both, right? Where it's very keyword focused versus, maybe might get a lot of views.
I'm kind of doing both. I
Yeah.
should probably pick a lane, to be honest, but
I don't,
yeah,
I have no idea.
you know what the problem is with the buying guide type YouTube content, and this might be different on like tech or photography channels that have higher commissions, but I found that the problem is no one clicks on links on YouTube.
Mm,
Like compared to your website, like very few
right.
people are going to go down to the description, especially on their phone, and click on a link and go buy something. Like maybe they already have it in their cart, maybe they're going to buy it on their computer later, but very few people click on links. So the YouTube channel gets more monthly views than the website and brings in way less affiliate revenue,
Yeah. Yep.
you know? So the value of a view for me on YouTube is way lower than the value of a view on the website. And that's kind of hard to reconcile from a business perspective. And that's why I think that sponsored content is actually the best way to monetize YouTube right now.
Yeah. So what about ad revenue on YouTube? What are you doing there?
Peanuts.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, it's okay, but it's so like if I'm getting maybe 500,000 views a month on YouTube, that might generate $1,500 to $2,000.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So RPMs aren't really that great.
they're really bad compared to like what AdThrive can do on a
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's nice to have money, I guess, right? But it's not quit your day
yeah,
job money.
exactly. But I mean, sponsorships are very lucrative, and I think
Yes.
that if I were smarter, I'd probably have some sort of course or some sort of offer that I could use on YouTube. For now, it's really been something I can use for sponsored content, a bit of a creative outlet. It's definitely good for brand building, my personal brand. I think YouTube gives you, if you care about this, I think YouTube gives you a bit of fame that you can't really have from a website.
Mm-hmm.
And a bit of clout, I guess, in the industry. So it's cool. Like I like YouTube. It's just right now it's not as important for my business goals.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So how does YouTube and your blog kind of work together? You mentioned earlier that you are no longer really publishing your YouTube content on your blog, but do they kind of interact with each other in some way?
A little bit, yeah. I'll embed relevant YouTube videos in blog posts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, it's good to have a video in there to increase the time on page and everything. Um, I used to try to get people from YouTube to the blog, and I could never figure that out.
Mm.
So I don't know if that's just me or if that's the nature of it. But I couldn't get people to sign up for my email list or go like read an article from YouTube. If they're on YouTube, they want to stay there. And yeah, so right now they're not really working together. I think there's a lot of synergy between YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. I don't think there's a ton of synergy between YouTube and a blog right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So how is finding content ideas for YouTube different than finding content ideas for your blog? What's your process there for coming up with, hey, this is going to be our YouTube video next month?
So a lot of it, I will take articles and kind of put a different angle on them for a YouTube video. And a lot of it is the packaging. So for example, say I do a review on the blog for a specific watch model,
Mm-hmm.
the Orient Bambino. On the blog, the title for that would be Orient Bambino Review. But on the YouTube, it would be, I can't believe this watch is only $75,
Yeah, right.
because it has to. And maybe you could put Orient Bambino Review somewhere in the description, but if you don't have some sort of enticing package on YouTube, it will never have a chance until it starts maybe ranking for that word. So that's one strategy. More and more these days, I'm scripting YouTube videos on their own, so they actually don't have anything to do with the blog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. You have to get the click. You have to, sort of be a little bit sensational on YouTube. That's what people are there for, right?
Yeah.
What's your most successful video? Most views?
The most like all the top 5 or 10 are all very general, like wide net type stuff. So how to dress taller, how to keep your shirt tucked in is one.
Okay.
Just like very, very broad topics that appeal to a mass audience. That's what kind of does well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to talk to somebody just starting out and they're debating, should I start on YouTube? Should I start on a blog? What would be your advice for them? Where should they start?
I think it depends on. So either way, it's going to be a long haul. Like you're gonna be creating a lot of content unless you have some money and can outsource it. So think about really what you enjoy doing. Do you like talking in front of a camera and maybe editing video, or do you like writing? Because I know a lot of people who hate writing, and in that case, it's not even a decision. You have to go to YouTube.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on what kind of person you are. But either way, it's going to take a long time. I also think that if you like the idea of like being a quote unquote influencer or having a little bit of that internet celebrity, YouTube and social media is the way to go. If you want to be more in the background and just make passive income, I think a website is still extremely lucrative these days, as long as you have a nice foundation of SEO.
Yeah. No, I think that's some great tips. Let's jump back into the SEO a little bit. I feel like maybe I missed some important factors there. I mean, you basically doubled the traffic to the site in the last year. Besides updating content, maybe not besides, but what has been just really important, something we didn't cover, either as it relates to updating content or new content? Like, what do you think has really helped grow the traffic so much that we didn't talk about already?
I think one other thing is really thinking about the architecture of not the site, like not changing any permalink structure or anything like that, but thinking about the content architecture, I guess. Like I never really thought about, besides tags and categories, I never really thought about the like silos, like what this site was going to be known for to Google.
Mm-hmm.
And I really put a lot of time into that at the beginning of this year and looked at what had done well and thought, okay, here's like the 5 silos that this site's going to be known for. Here's what's already published, and here are the gaps. And so I realized that watch content did really well. I love watches, and I've published a few posts about them. They did really well. And I thought, okay, it's crazy not to triple down on that, So I kind of found formats that were doing well, and then found ways to expand them. Like, as an example, if I did a post that was the best watches under $100, it makes a lot of sense to do under the other tiers that people search for, under 200, 500, 1,000, 5,000,
Yeah.
And you could do that. And then if that worked, I could apply that to any category, shoes, boots, jeans, whatever. So I think kind of finding those little, it's like you're mining, and every now and then you find a little vein, and you, when you find one, you really have to go after it. Because otherwise you're leaving money on the table, and you're also not really serving your audience, because that's what they're searching for.
And so when you define silos, is that different than sort of just categories, or have you sort of meshed the two, right? Like, you formed these 5 categories on your site, and so watches is one of those.
It's a little different, because I think sometimes there's almost like overlap, or maybe there's silos within categories. For example, watches for small wrists. That's like a micro category, but it does really well, and it's not competitive because no one else is talking about it.
Yeah.
Clothing for short men. I mean, there was nothing published about that, And so now, rather than just having clothes for short men as one post, I have every category: shirts, sweaters, jeans, chinos. And some of those are very low search volume, but the idea is that when someone comes to one of those posts, they have 15 others that they can read. And I just want them to be delighted that they just found this content bucket, And then the other, I'd say the other thing that you don't really see, but it's on the back end, is the content type. And this has more to do with the formatting, but the idea of a buying guide versus a comparison article, versus a how to wear article.
Mm-hmm.
And so a reader might not realize it, but on the back end, we have outlines and kind of templates for each of these article types.
Right.
So you have your topic, and then you match it up with the type, and then that gets published.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how far in advance have you planned out your content? Do you know pretty well into 2021 what you're going to be publishing at this point?
It's about 3 months in advance.
Okay.
And I'd say at any given time, there's probably about a month worth of content ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what does the future look like for The Modest Man? Where do you hope to take this? Do you just want to keep scaling? What are your thoughts there on the future?
Well, I don't know if it's a changing landscape with websites right now, but for some reason in the past year, I've heard from probably 4 or 5 brokers who had potential buyers who had expressed interest in the site. And I'd never really thought about that until I started learning more about the industry. And obviously, I know you've talked about a little bit. I follow Richard Patey and some other guys who are really experts in that area. And so I'm thinking about that more now. And I don't think the site's quite where it needs to be for me to feel like it was a meaningful exit. But I do think that's in the future. This isn't something I want to do forever. And so I think that's in the future. And I'm kind of, everything that I'm doing on the site now is with that in mind.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to build that passive income portion and really get the processes down and make it more attractive. So if I sold the site, I'd keep YouTube, because buyers don't want a YouTube channel. They don't want anything to do with influencer marketing or YouTube. So I would sell the site, keep YouTube and social. And then I've got a couple other sites sort of in the works. There's a couple sites that I might want to buy, if I sold.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some ideas, but I'm really just really focused on themodestman.com right now, because I think it could be a much better sale than it would be right now.
Yeah, it's a great business. It's growing. There's probably still lots of potential. I mean, the keywords better than I do, but I'm sure there's, lots of new content that you could be adding, optimizing. And that's cool, man. thinking about exit, I think, is important. If it's something that people want to do, they should be thinking about what would the eventual buyer like to see, what makes it as easy as possible. Some of those things that you mentioned, right? They probably don't want YouTube. They probably don't want the hands-on influencer marketing, but they also want the processes and procedures. And if the writers are going to stick on as well, like even better, right? All of those things. And so now that I know that you're thinking about that, do you sort of have a time frame of like, hey, in the next 3 years for sure, I think I want to exit, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking as soon as within a year, but
Okay.
it kind of like right now, the site is on a really nice trajectory, and that's kind of, it's great, but it's also like it makes it hard to part with, but it's also a great time to sell because buyers love an upward trend. So, um, I think multiples for websites are in a great place. I don't think they're going to go down. So, yeah, it's something maybe 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
No, very exciting. And so it sounds like at least long term, or maybe not long term, but next few years, it sounds like you got a couple new sites that you're working on. You might buy a site or two if you were to sell The Modest Man. And it sounds like you would just focus again on SEO, ramping up content on either new sites that you're working on, that sort of thing, like making that sort of the career, right?
Yeah, I mean, it took me so long to get Modest Man to a decently successful place. So I feel like I could take all those lessons and failures and learnings along the way and kind of apply it to a new site, or maybe if I bought a site, and I think I could do it a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If we go back to the beginning of the interview, building sites pre-Panda where you're just trying stuff, right? And
Mhm.
learning along the way. Like there's nothing more that going through experience and building things yourself, like, is just so critical for learning and experience. And so, yeah, I'm sure that you could do things even faster now than when you started The Modest Man. So anything else that you'd like to share with people that you're currently working on, or just where would where's the best place for people to go to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody ever wants to talk shop or get in touch, they can. So I have a site, fulltimeblog.com, and it's kind of my niche pursuits, except for uh, more neglected, I would say. But I do income reports on there, and
Okay.
then I try to publish another post like once a month or something. Just um, I don't want to publish anything on there that's like fluff, so it's all very like meaty, in depth stuff. So that's kind of the behind the scenes of my business, and my contact info is over there. If you want to check out, I guess my money site, that's themodestman.com.
Yeah. Perfect. Brock, thanks for coming on the podcast. It's great to connect. Great to chat business and hear what you're working on. I think listeners have probably picked up some great tips along the way. So thanks for coming on the show.
I hope they have. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Long time fan.
Yep. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Bye.